Hi again. So now I'm going to be talking about the Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I thought was a really interesting book. It took a very different perspective on relationships, love, the difference between a light human being and one that's more dense and dynamic. One of the main characters in this book are Sabina, Thomas, and Teresa, right? So basically, Thomas and Sabina are, past lovers who they're both seen as light characters because they can just, interact in sexual intercourse without any feelings, and that's kind of how they live with their relationships. It's very shallow and just oh, we can have sex and it's not a big deal because there's no emotional attachment. And so Teresa is introduced to this concept when she falls in love with Thomas, and she kind of finds it very odd at first. She's self-conscious, she's not used to it. This whole idea of him cheating on her, actively cheating on her, and she knows, he's with all these other girls, and she's trying really hard to understand his lifestyle. And we see one part in the book where she actually engages in such activities herself, and she cheats on a guy, and it's just really a better way, a means of her trying to better understand his lifestyle. And so basically, I just personally, I thought this book was really interesting because I would always be oh, you can, when people just hook up with other people, it's not very emotional, and as long, it's our society has twisted this perception of, oh, since you had sex with him, you guys are obviously, together and emotionally attached, and it's something that we as a society have furthered in terms of, we kind of see it in a distorted way of what it actually is. Of course, obviously, it's still seen as unfaithful and, not something that usually occurs, but most of, if we look at it from a very impartial view, the idea, Thomas's relationship with Sabina and Teresa, we can see, it makes sense that he lives his life like this. It's something that we can, it's something that you can relate to, you can understand if you completely just ignore, society's views on it. And so basically, this book is kind of can be seen as sort of just a different way, a perspective of seeing something emotional and physical. And so I think basically, I really enjoyed this book. And another relationship we can talk more about is Franz and Sabina. And Franz is a lot like Teresa in that he's a very dynamic character, and he's very heavy in the sense of his feelings. He's not okay with, oh, you can't just sleep with other guys and us be together. Sex is something that Franz sees as an emotional attachment, but Sabina doesn't live her life that way. And so we can see troubles in their relationship, and just a comparison of how Teresa and Franz are very similar, and versus Sabina and Thomas. But overall, yes, I really enjoyed this book, and it was really enlightening in that it took a perspective that wasn't common in society. And I feel a lot of books attempt to do that, but this, it really hit the point. So now on to the next book.